My name is Daryl McCaig. I'm on the board of directors of Kansas City Jazz Alive, and so we've got a really great program coming up that I'm very excited to hear what has to be said. But before we start that program, I would like to bring our board president, Christopher Burnett, up, and we've got a small presentation that we would like to do. And he's too busy greeting people to even hear me talking. Christopher Burnett.
Thank you, Daryl McCaig. Daryl is the reason that this is so cool. He's organized everything. He does these Vivid Vision panel sessions. But I'd like to interrupt that and bring John McGraw and BJ Jansen over. John is an original founder of Kansas City Jazz Alive. And we have another original founder here that we are going to honor today. He's the past president of the organization, and he consented for us to honor him. Greg Carroll, will you stand up here, please? Greg Carroll. Kansas City Jazz Alive began about a dozen years ago with John McGraw, Greg Carroll, and Pam Hyder Johnson, and Steve Hargrave. It was a vision for them to actually honor Charlie Parker in a significant way that hadn't been done. So it just came from them, I guess, eating steaks and talking about Charlie Parker should be honored, and so they decided to do something about it. And here we are a dozen years later, and we're moving out of a startup phase. The young gentleman standing here is BJ Jansen. He's the incoming president of the board. I will be moving to ex officio. I'm really excited to see what these guys do. It's going to be really cool. Okay, John, would you mind presenting what we've got there for Greg?
Well, I will hold it up. I think you can do a little louder.
Okay. The board of directors and the other co-founders, it was a tradition that whoever came off the board, someone got them something, usually the past president. So Greg was the president. Don't listen to him. Do not listen to him. Do not record this. Do not put this on YouTube. Okay. No, it's already there. Sorry. So as the current president, and this is my last official event, I thought what would be better for Greg than to give him something like this that epitomized his work all over Kansas City, you know, the role he's played, and to show our appreciation. A lot of times you don't get to say thank you to people, and Greg, I had to twist his arm about coming to do this, in a sense, because he didn't think it was necessary. But it is necessary, isn't it? Greg Carroll? Greg, do you have anything to say to everybody?
So, one of my great teachers in Denver used to say, don't give Greg the mic. Pulling the mic away from him would be like trying to pull a tooth out of a saber-toothed tiger. So I told Chris that I would be very brief and practice the 3 Bs. I'm very honored here. First and foremost, we want to give thanks to Pam Hyder Johnson, who's been in heaven with our ancestors for many years, for her great work as one of the co-founders. I did promise Chris that I would be brief and practice the 3 Bs. I'm going to be brief, be concise, and I'm going to be seated. So with that, 77 years ago, our fathers set forth. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So I rode into Kansas City back in 2007, 17 years ago, and I remember vividly. Speaking of vivid visions, where's Bill? He's here somewhere. I think I saw Bill Moeller, who's our co-brand, or the namesake behind Vivid Visions. Anyhow, I remember rolling into Kansas City, and I'm literally taking boxes up to my office, and I'm getting attacked by staff. Mr. Carroll, what's your vision? What's your mission? What's your vision? What's your vision? I'm like, first vision is I want to get these boxes out of my car and get them in my office. And as I started to look, I thought, okay, let me just breathe for a minute and go about 60,000 feet above ground and take a scan of everything that's happening here at the American Jazz Museum. And as I saw the culture and experienced the programming and what we were doing, it occurred to me that there were 5 important words that came to me. And those words were the driving force behind what I think we needed to do as an organization, which I called ABC. A meaning be authentic and accurate with the information we share to people about this music. B meaning that we are being very focused on delivering positive programming to people in all aspects of what we do. And C, thinking about how we take care in preserving and protecting the assets of the American Jazz Museum. And so at my very first staff meeting, I asked for all the senior staff to come together, and 17 people showed up. And there were like 4 others left. And I said, y'all are senior staff? I said, so who's not senior? Well, we just all think we're senior staff. Okay, so I said, let's just pull all the staff together. And I had a big whiteboard, and I wrote 5 words on the board. It's all about the music. And I underlined it. That's my vision. That's what we need to do at this institution. And so when John and I, 3 years later, started to sort of percolate this idea, I'm fresh off the boat from the IAJE, the International Association for Jazz Education, where we were an umbrella organization where all the folks in jazz could kind of plug in, right? So John and I were talking, and we knew that, okay, we have a very fractured jazz community in Kansas City, a lot of siloism occurring, a lot of fragmentation, a lot of competition. It's really rooted in negative competition. And so we said we need to do a miniature version of IAJE here in Kansas City. And that meant that, as I shared with John, that we can't take it on at the American Jazz Museum because we're seen as the competition. So we need to start an organization that can be a neutral zone, Switzerland of jazz in Kansas City. And so we began to talk. We pulled in Steve Hargrave, who at the time was the president of the ambassadors, the Jazz Ambassadors, and we pulled in Pam Hyder Johnson, who was the president of the Elder Statesmen of Kansas City, and myself and John, who is just every frickin' thing in Kansas City. This guy, I love this guy. My first donor at the museum. He and Wendy, great people. Anyhow, so after about, 6 months of eating lots of steaks at the Kansas City Club, which John tried to get me to join, by the way, we formulated this idea, Kansas City Jazz Alive. A for awareness, L for listening, I for integration of ideas, V for voice, and E for exposure. And it was important to form this organization at a sort of a grassroots level. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. So we started these little lunch sessions where we got people together and we sat around round tables and we ate and drank tea and lemonade. And we talked about jazz and what we're doing and what we'd like to do with the organization and get their ideas. And after a few months of that, I started to tell the board, my fellow board members, I think we're overdoing this. We need to make this an informational session. And so we formed the idea of doing panels. So for a while, I became the moderator of that, and we brought in different artists, different people. Emily was a subject many a time. She was a victim of my panel work that came in, and we had great conversation about the music in Kansas City. And then we decided, we have to de-Greg Carrolize this panel. And so what we did is we found this guy who's a radio voice, very astute man, very, very big fan of jazz, Steve Kraske, you know this guy. And so he became our moderator of choice and took over. He basically fired me from the spot, booted me off the stage, which I was happily to do, and has been just a fantastic stalwart for us for the, 4 or 5 years you've been doing it now. And so that brings us here today. So as I told Chris, this isn't about me. It's all about the music. This is about us making sure that these young people over here have a future in Kansas City, that they have a place to play, and that these people here have a place to go hear them play. And that we as an organization are charged with being able to connect the two, right? That's really our goal. And so with that was born some great programs, the Charlie Parker Celebration, which ended up being Spotlight Charlie Parker, the Student Music Boot Camp, There's so many things that we started to do that I'm very proud of, that after about 14 years, I've decided, it's time. None of us can do this forever, or nor should we. I think we should make way for new voices, for new light in the organization. So I'm very grateful that we have a fantastic board in Chris and BJ and Daryl and Emily, and the two new folks who I haven't met yet, but I look forward to meeting. And I just want to say thank you. This is truly an honor for me, and it's something that I will cherish. Thank you. Amen.
Way to go, Greg. Way to go. Way to go. Thank you. Thank you. John, would you mind presenting that to Greg? Good. There we go.
Here, take it. Here you go.
It's basically a token from the board. There's a short letter here, and it's large, as you can see. It's worthy of framing in their museum gallery at home. So it's something that we hope Greg holds on to and remembers how significant he has been to this organization and to Kansas City Jazz and jazz in general. So we appreciate you. I'm going to give this to BJ and get out of the way. There you go, BJ.
Welcome. Thank you, Greg. All right, and I'm going to hand the mic over to our MC of this evening and the organizer, Daryl McKay.
All right, I am going to be brief because I think Greg said most of the things I wanted to say, with the exception that I get the fun job of reading off all of our sponsors for this event. So we are very thankful for our sponsors. We're thankful for Rick Truman back here at the back of the room, the CEO of the Folly Theater, and his staff for presenting us this wonderful room to do this in. We are thankful to the Neighborhood Tourist Development Fund, City of Kansas City, Missouri, Buttonwood Foundation, Missouri Arts Council, National Endowment for the Arts, Flarsheim Foundation, Francis Family Foundation, Muriel McBrien Kauffman Foundation, and we're also thankful for all of you, because without you, we couldn't do this. And so we very much appreciate your support. And with no further ado, I'm going to bring our wonderful moderator, Steve Kraske from KCUR, up to date to introduce us to our panelists and get this program going.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody, and guys, come on up. So good to be with everybody tonight, and I was tomorrow on KCUR's Up to Date. You'll be hearing Chuck Haddix is going to be on to talk about the new recording, Charlie Parker recording that he produced and is just now being released. It truly is an historic. Yeah, I think I'm getting it. It's really an historic. Yeah, thanks, Daryl. An historic recording, and we're going to talk about it during the show tomorrow. So I hope you'll tune in. 9 a.m. 89.3 Up to Date. And I was talking to thanks, Daryl, to Daryl and Jim and some others coming in tonight, and it just occurred to me that we meet at kind of a interesting moment in the history of jazz in our country. That generation of the early beboppers is passing on. We've had three notable deaths just in the last week or so: Quincy Jones, and Roy Haynes and Lou Donaldson, all of whom I've been reading about this week. So it is kind of an interesting moment, which makes tonight an even more interesting moment, because we're going to talk about the next generation coming up, who they are, what goals and aspirations they have, and where they want to take this music that those gentlemen gave us so many years ago and grew and expanded upon so adroitly as they did. So without further ado, let me introduce the panelists, beginning with Nick, who's closest to me. Nick Hmeljak is a trumpeter, band leader, educator, and composer. In the middle, Josiah Assefa, Josiah Assefa, a woodwindist, arranger, and composer. And on my far left, Jordan Faught, a downbeat award-winning bassist. Let's give them a round of applause for coming to see us here tonight. You know, I wanted to talk to you guys about your own past getting here. I'm going to do that in just a moment. But one thing just strikes me as so interesting. Your generation, a lot of your contemporaries, your friends, your buddies, they aren't into jazz. Why are you guys into jazz? What was it that brought you to this music, beginning whenever it did? Nick, let me begin with you.
Yeah, so my first exposure to jazz was when I was pretty young, probably in elementary school. My dad played a recording of Louis Armstrong for me, and that's kind
That'll
of
do it.
Yeah, right. Sent me down the path of becoming a trumpet player, and then from there, I got my very first jazz album for Christmas in middle school, which was The Complete Birth of the Cool, Miles Davis and Gil Evans, and that kind of became like the soundtrack to my life for a year because it was the only thing I had. So, I guess that's how I was exposed to it and how I kind of fell in love with the music was just singing along and listening to that album.
Why'd you stay with it?
Well, it's really fun to play. I find that, for me personally, like my musical journey is, it's about like self-exploration and also being able to create something, right? I think in a world where a lot of us are consuming. Like it's a very human thing, and it's a really great thing to be able to create something new. So that's why, I keep doing it.
Josiah, how about you? Why jazz, man?
When I was just growing up in the church, I went to an Ethiopian church. My parents are from Ethiopia, so a lot of the music wasn't necessarily jazz, but it was very like Afro-Cuban, and very groove bass kind of stuff. And being just surrounded by that constantly was really I knew I loved just music, and my parents put me through piano lessons when I was really young, and my uncle played guitar and stuff like that. And then when I was in 8th grade, I became really good friends with a guy named Jameson Mayer, who is Jim Mayer's son. And when I was just trying to he was doing playing jazz and listening to jazz, and all my friends were just very curious. So we started a combo, and Jim Mayer allowed us to practice in his basement. And then Jim kind of pushed me by giving me his record, and I listened to that, and I was like, wow. And then the record that surprisingly did it, though, not really surprisingly, it's just the Kind of Blue is a very, very well-known jazz record. But I remember listening to that record every day for the entire first semester of high school, just back when I was biking to school and back, and that kind of started it for me. So
Yeah, Jordan, how about you?
I guess I have a little bit of a non-standard story because I got started pretty recently. The reason I went to jazz in the first place is really I wanted to learn how to play music in general. I went to KCC where Jim Mayer taught, and I wasn't exposed to jazz at all throughout my childhood, really in any capacity. But I wanted to learn how to play, and I really appreciated music from different eras. And so taking a historical approach to music in general, you just cannot ignore the contributions that jazz has made to just the overall music. And when I showed up to KCC wanting to learn how to play, and I started to understand what jazz was, what improv music is, I was like, man, this is really what I need to be doing, especially from an expression point of view, but also if I want to learn all these different kinds of music that I grew up on, well, this is where it came from. And so to me, it's a historical approach. And it's just necessary to be into it, to be able to do the things that I love to do.
Do you ever get discouraged that more of your contemporaries aren't into it?
I would say that I don't really agree with that. A lot of my contemporaries, if we're just talking about people in Gen Z, a lot of the music doesn't come from the radio. A lot of the music that they're interested in comes from their phone. And what fits in the minute to a minute 30 that's on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And if you look at people like Laffy or even... what's her name? Samara Joy. You got these popular artists who are coming out now who are kind of our age, where this music is popular on social media. Right. And I would just because it's not playing on the radio and it's not trending on YouTube doesn't mean it's not within our culture and it's not within our consciousness.
Josiah, you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say for even when you go I went through the public school system, and even when you go through that, it's jazz is still very prominent, and people are still listening in school. All my friends, when I was just going to school, we all would listen to music together. We'd all enjoy listening to jazz. But I do though also agree that there is also just more exposure to a lot more other music and rap and all these kind of things pop and music and stuff like that. But I think that, yeah, since jazz like influences all of that, and I think just enjoying music in general is like great. And also people kind of get jazz through like modern artists that aren't maybe jazz artists. Like in 2015, Kendrick Lamar dropped "To Be a Butterfly," which is a widely known record to have a lot of jazz influence in that. Yeah. So yeah.
Nick, you get discouraged?
I mean, not really. I mean, if we think about like music, like what's popular, I mean, you can confront it to something else. Like, for example, McDonald's is one of the most popular restaurants in America, but is that the best food that America has to offer? Like, that's kind of how I see it. Is like, I don't know.
That needs to go somewhere on a poster or something. Yeah.
That's kind of my view on it. Is just because something is like more people like participate in some sort of thing doesn't necessarily make it better or worse. It's everyone just has to live their own life and do what they want to do.
Well, Jordan, are you saying then that the future potential audience for music like jazz is actually looking pretty good, pretty robust?
I mean, it's really impossible to tell. I will tell you that the gigs that I get to be involved in, the people who connect with the music have a type of connection that means something to them in a really intense way. Especially, like, I play with Lonnie McFadden on Fridays and Saturdays, and his, like, going back to the historical approach, the way that he kind of lays out how we got here, people, like, really resonate with that, especially from Kansas City, because, I mean, like, let's be real, we're in KC, you know what I'm saying? So, I think that the more people, especially from this city in my generation, as we learn about the history of this city, I feel like it's important as a Kansas City native to be like, yeah, that's part of where I'm from and what I do, but also more nationally, you hear influence in a lot of the popular music, and even music that's not as popular as you might like look at the Billboard 500 or whatever,
Yeah. Josiah, are you confident about the future market audiences for jazz going forward?
I would say like it's very common for a lot of musicians who just start out playing music in general. The more they discover about their instrument, just about playing music in general, I think they tend to go back because, like Jordan was saying about the history and stuff like that. Like a good example of that is like Willow Smith. Like a lot of her first, like she's a very mainstream artist, and a lot of her first stuff was very, very poppy. But then she started to go back to like listening to Billie Holiday and transcribing Billie Holiday and was posting that and stuff like that. And now all her music is still modern music, but the influence is still there. So I think a lot of musicians starting will just gravitate to go back. And I think jazz will just keep going because of that.
I'm curious to get your perspectives because this organization talks often about what it can do to promote and boost. And we talk often about the need for the city of Kansas City to get behind and promote and boost and push jazz music forward. It's not lost on anybody in this room that the World Cup is, a year and a half off, and what a tremendous opportunity that is to connect the music in this town with a whole new audience of folks coming to Kansas City. So what I'm wondering, Nick, and I'll start with you, what would you like to see the city of Kansas City do to get behind what you're trying to do?
Well, I think it starts with like marketing. I think that if you look at jazz music and compare it to other genres, there's like way less marketing for jazz. Like, look at like the major pop artists of today, and I'm not saying that, that's necessarily what needs to happen, but like look at how much stuff they're putting out to inform the general public of their shows happening,
I mean, you could have asked Taylor Swift out for a date. And I didn't see you going there. You missed a real opportunity. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think it just starts with marketing, and then also just the image of jazz music. I think like right now, a lot of people like who are not involved in music view jazz as something for like the aristocracy, like it's
right.
a high level thing, but I think if you look at it from like a historical perspective, it's
not
always
that.
been the music of the people. It's
Right.
for everybody. No matter who you are. And so just creating more spaces that are geared towards that. For one, I think having more venues would be a pretty good idea. I think I can think of two off the top of my head. that are dedicated to just listening to this music. And both of those venues do a great job of being inviting to a lot of people. I just think that if we had more of those and more marketing for people who aren't involved in those areas, more people would show up.
Marketing. Josiah, how much would marketing help?
I think it would help a lot. And I just to piggyback off what Nick was saying, like when like records are being dropped here, they're still being it's like there's still advertisement that's going out, but it's just like it's not really reaching people, or it's not being like people spend a lot more time advertising an album than I feel like people do here, that I think would bring people to more shows and be like, oh, check out this person kind of thing, you know. And I think another thing is with like a lot of venues is that I feel like a lot of venues tend to keep like a certain amount of people out, with there's like age limits. Like I know I want to go see jazz like all the time, and I want to go into places, but you know it's either 21 plus, but it's like I'm only there just to listen. Like I'm there to support like what's happening in there. You know what I mean? So I think that's another big one.
Before we move on, you mentioned social media, and it's not reaching, it's not connecting. Talk to me about that.
So,
what needs to happen?
So like a lot of like mainstream, music is going in a direction, I feel like, especially with like the labels and just advertising, is like you don't need a label to like blow up, right? You can literally be your own artist and you don't need to do all that. But like I find that people don't put that effort into the social media aspect of things, because it's like when you promote like in the style that people are going to consume on social media, like don't put a lot of information, put things that will grab people's eyes and attention. That's what I think brings people, especially with like the short attention spans now. It's like we have TikTok that's like 1 minute. That's as much as you get, is 1 minute, and even then people will just go past it. So like I think there's just a better way to market, and it would take people knowing the system like that. Like
and a better way to market, you're talking TikTok, you're talking Insta.
Yeah, like all social, like when I was just trying to promote my stuff, when I was just trying to start out, I realized that it's like there's like so many platforms, there's so many different ways of reaching people. People are only willing to, like, people have like their apps, you know, somebody's on Facebook only or someone's on Instagram only. It's like you have to reach all these people and you have to post the same thing. And you might have the same 500 followers maybe like following you and just seeing that over like, oh, this guy constantly posting. But it's like, I know artists that did that and just are like not even like looking at the 500, because it's like the focus is not about the followers you have, but it's the followers you don't have, you know? So you have to like really, your audience is the next following. It's always the next person. It's never the same people, you know? So I think there could be a consistent approach for promotion.
You know, I'm not telling you anything, but there's a real art and a science behind how to use social media effectively. You know, journalists are all about that and trying to work that system. Do you think your contemporaries in jazz music understand what they need to do to promote themselves effectively on social?
You know, I think they know of it. I think they know better than most people that aren't our age group, because you know the age group that watches the younger age group is most active on social media, and they know how that stuff works because they intake that information constantly. But it's one thing to take it in, another thing to produce it. Yeah. So I would say that I would say that even if they do know, a lot of people don't want to do it because they think it draws away from the art, because they feel like they don't want to post 15 seconds of the same song 10 different times for the next 3 days. They just want to work on making the song and then performing the song, or you know what I mean, or releasing it. But
so the notion of promotion is sort of lost on them.
Exactly.
A little
bit. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Do you think if KC Jazz Alive put on a social media type of workshop, would people come?
Yeah, I mean, I know I would be interested, because to me it's like I feel like every young musician, at least my age, knows that advertisement is a very big deal. But I feel like they there's just not, like I said, there's not enough resources for that. And it's also just kind of like you have to figure it out. Like a lot of people who are great social media, marketers and stuff like that, a lot of them don't really have like credentials besides the fact that they just produced a 2 million sub channel, and that's the way they market their business. You know what I mean? It's not like a credential thing. It's like, I feel like you have to learn from someone with experience less than from someone who has like a degree in
Nick
that.
and John, for what it's worth, I know people who could help with exactly what we're talking about. Jordan, hop in here. How important is it to work the social, and is a bet being missed here?
Social media is obviously the main medium in which like we consume information across all different mediums. I would say that because, and I do agree with you that I feel like one of the mindset issues that we have is like young musicians is that if we like chop up this product into things that are digestible, little nuggets of this music, that it does devalue the art and the time that you put into it. But I also believe that one thing that's kind of missing from and there are some people in the city who are really good about this, but is not just the music, but overall aesthetic, and like having an aesthetic brand that branches not only the sound, but also what you look like, the way that like when you see it, you recognize like, oh, that is this based on this like overall concept of what I'm looking at when you're scrolling. Because, the scroll is truly ubiquitous, especially amongst my generation. It's actually unbelievable. And if you, the stuff that really speaks, the stuff that really speaks is the stuff that is, like, for example, my favorite bass player right now is Mono Neon. And you look at it, it takes you less than a second to be like, oh, look at Mono Neon. Like, it's pretty clear. He dresses in super high visibility. And if you look at his YouTube videos, at the end of each one of his videos, he has this art manifesto, which is in bullet points down the list, all the different aspects of who he is as an artist and a musician and what he's going to do about it. And, I take a lot of inspiration for that because, I'm kind of a sideman right now. I'm building up my artistry in small ways. I do a lot of work with, like, other people, but I definitely want to have my own voice as a musician. I take a lot of inspiration from, like, Thundercat and Mono Neon, who, by the way, are massive touring artists. They do fill stadiums. And to say that Thundercat's not a jazz musician is kind of difficult because, the way he plays is pretty wild. But then you're getting into the nitty-gritty of defining what we're talking about, which gets difficult, you know what I mean? But if we stay more on, one thing that I really want to develop is how to create an aesthetic brand that's multimodal, that's not just visual, but it's also, like, the way that you dress, it's the way that you sound, it's the types of instruments that you're doing, the people that you draw from, wearing your inspirations on your sleeve, like not only locally but internationally as well, because there's lots of local people who have been deeply influential to me who namely like James Ward, Jim Mayer, DeAndre Manning, Lonnie obviously, but like the list goes on and on and on about these local guys that you integrate that as well as the things nationally and internationally that you dig all into what you are and then are able to express that. I feel like the pathway towards learning how to do that is a little unclear. A lot of it is like very mathematical. These are the changes, this is how you derive the chord scale based off the chord, and then you better have these 50 tunes memorized. And if you don't, but then once you get out of college, it's like, okay, well, now I've written 50 tunes of my own compared to the ones that I known, and I don't know how to let anybody know about it. And so I would say that not just promoting the music, because I think I heard somebody say this one time, but it's like people listen with their eyes, and if you can get them to look at it just long enough to hear a little bit of it, that's the first step. And I feel like that aspect is a little, could use a little work.
You mentioned some of the venerable veteran players in town. I'm wondering, Nick, how welcoming have you found the Kansas City jazz community? How helpful are the veteran players to reaching out to you and offering guidance and help? What have you found?
Yeah, well, so for those of you that don't know, I moved here about 1.5 years ago from Nashville, Tennessee, where I did my undergrad. So I'm still fairly new on the scene.
Why did you come here?
Well, so Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm glad you came here, but maybe
No.
the tone was wrong. Okay, I apologize. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
No,
Just being a
I,
journalist, just asking the hard questions. Yeah.
No, I mean, so I moved here. So I was playing around Nashville, and I was doing like a pretty big variety of gigs, and I was kind of going down this path of more, being a sideman for music that I wasn't particularly passionate about, which
Right.
was great. It was a good bit of money, but it wasn't like very fulfilling to me. And I felt like at my age, like I wanted to try to do my own thing, and so I have a couple friends that live here in Kansas City, and I really found the environment of musicians and artists here to be really inspiring. So I made the move here. But as far as like the older generation of musicians here, it's kind of a mix. I mean, there's definitely a group of older musicians that I would say probably keep to themselves, and they kind of have their own scene. But the people that have been really influential to me here, that I've been fortunate enough to receive guidance from, is my teacher Stan Kessler, one of my mentors Eddie Moore, and
sure.
a little bit with Adam Larson. Anytime I can catch him, he's not around much, but every time I get to chat with him, he's been very, very giving with his advice. So,
Josiah, how about you?
It's been pretty welcoming, I'd say. Eddie has been a great, like Eddie, a mentor, just a person to, just like talk to about a lot of like just like I love the stuff he's doing and stuff like that. But another one is Matt Otto. I'm currently studying under Matt Otto, and
That's a good guy to study under.
wealth of knowledge. Yeah, it's great. And Dan Gailey and that whole thing. And then
Matt's new album, terrific.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I
it's-
just can't
it's
commend
killing.
it enough. Yeah.
Killing, yeah. Adam Larson too. I've been taking lessons with him for about with him for a year now, and that was great as well. And yeah, like Brett Jackson. I was at KCC last year actually for my freshman year. So all that entire faculty was great too. But I'd say it's very welcoming, and it's just great. It's like it's just good. I have nothing else.
Jordan?
Yeah, I want to definitely the impact that Eddie Moore has had on the way I understand what I want to be, what I want to do with my life, and generally how to do it cannot be understated.
His name's coming up here a lot amongst three.
Eddie Moore,
Yeah.
he's a legend. Seriously, he not only does he give, but he gives in a way that like you better understand what he's saying, because he's doing it. He's literally doing it, and man, I just can't respect that guy enough,
His new solo piano record,
dude.
killing.
Tell me, what does he do that's connecting with you guys? What is it that works with Eddie?
Well, first of all, getting caught up in being a sideman is really easy, especially as a bass player, and especially in this city. There's all kinds of people who are trying to do things who need, people to help out. And one thing that Eddie really kind of instilled in me is the idea that not only can you stand on your art as an individual, as an artist, but that's what you should do. And that, Kansas City is a little bit of a bubble because you can just kind of skirt by, but he's from Houston, so he's talking about like that's a necessity for him for his growth to be able to be a musician and do the things that he's done to if you look at Eddie Moore post, it takes you less than a second to be like, man, that's Eddie, that sounds like Eddie, that feels like what Eddie's trying to get across. It's really clear, and he's got a serious voice, and the way that he gives to the youth is really next level. I mean, these guys know. But beyond him, Jim Mayer, also cannot be understated. For me, I got started kind of weird. I just showed up to KCK not playing any instruments, and it was during COVID lockdown. So he was like, well, our program needs a bass player. And so he just kind of dropped me into all the combos, and then was like walking bass lines on the B3 while I'm sitting there trying to what's happening? And he just doesn't even care. He's going to make you play, and you're going to love it, and that's it. And I cannot thank him enough. I would not be here talking. I wouldn't know any of these people without Jim Mayer. So but the fact of the matter is, he just wanted people to play. He wanted people to dig on it and to appreciate where it came from, the history of Kansas City. What was the original question? I just love these people so much. They've given so much, and I don't even remember.
You mentioned you play with McFadden.
Yeah.
Do the rest of you guys tend to play just with people your own age, or are they multi-generational groupings, or what do you see as you get around town?
When I started, it was a lot more of my own, like just my own gigs, which was kind of cool because when you kind of establish a group with people your age, you have the music out, everyone's kind of comfortable, and you can just it was pretty great. But then just just getting more into the scene, I've started working with like wedding bands and other groups where it can be. I've played with Arnie Young at the Blue Room, and at Westport Coffee House. It's just a variety at this point now.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I play with a variety of ages, I'd say. I mean, Eddie's in my band, so, and I played with, like, Matt Tabor, who's around his age as well. Yeah, I try to keep it a mix of people. I think everyone has a unique perspective, and depending on the project, I'll call different people.
Is Eddie in your band, or are you in Eddie's band?
I wish I was in Eddie's band. He's making some real cool music. No. I mean, I have my own group. One of my biggest weaknesses is booking gigs. So I'm not really, there's not a lot of work in Kansas City as a sideman, as a horn player. So, that's been a big focus of mine, is just improving my ability to book gigs. But whenever I do, I get Eddie on them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Intergenerational musical relationships to me have been like the foundation of all, like, my entire education. There's this gentleman named Mike Ning who worked as an adjunct at Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And essentially all he would do is he'd have this piece of paper, you'd go sign your name up, and you have an hour-long slot, and you would just sit in a room with him with a piano, and he would just teach you songs. And that would be the entire thing. And one of the first records I ever listened to of jazz was his record, Blues for YP Ning, with him and then Bob Bowman and then Danny Embry's on a tune. And, I mean, that record is really special. But one other thing about intergenerational, I play at the Mutual Musicians Foundation quite frequently.
Right.
I was there both nights last weekend. And the opportunity to play with the older cats there has set me up for pretty much all of the gigs that I've played. And I would say it's as educational as college was. Just being on stage with people like Brad Williams or like Pete Cole, who's like old school, and then like you got just all these people who you really only see there. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of people of that generation who still come through there. It's late night, 1 to 5 a.m. It's hard, but. And I get it, but when you do get the opportunity to be around those people, the education doesn't stop until you leave, and it just flows. And it might not be them like literally telling you things, but just being on the bandstand and experiencing what's happening. You don't get that kind of thing with your peers at the same age because everyone's like trying to figure it out at the same time, depending on who your peers are. We got some crazy guys out here, but. When you get to play with those older fellas, it really is the most important thing to me. And I played, my first gig out of college was with the Reyes brothers at the Black Dolphin with Andre and Tony. And those two guys those are some Kansas City cats if you know them. They're swinging, they understand the blues, and they do all different styles of music, and they just give. And they're a little bit older than me. They're not that far out of my age range generationally. It's kind of there's a little bit of a skip of a generation. There's like the I don't even know the names of the generations anymore. I think there's a new one out, but
Newsflash. Well, if you think 1 to 5 a.m. is hard for you, you don't know what hard is yet until you get to be just
hey man,
young man. Yeah,
it's challenging, but it's very gratifying.
Jordan actually invited me out to the foundation like constantly, like my first year trying to get into the scene, and then this past summer I've been going like so much, and then he finally had me on a night with Brad Williams and Drew Madden and Jordan, and it was crazy because it's just like us three were all like the same. Me, Drew, and Jordan are all the same age, and Brad was just like. It was like a life-altering experience, like it felt for me, because I was just like, whoa, like this is crazy. And unlike like throughout this entire summer, I kept coming back to the foundation to go because like I did the youth jazz thing, which I did that, and Houston was one of the clinicians for art, Houston Smith, and. Then I heard him. You don't really hear him much play in like in the rehearsal space because it's just like we're all trying to figure out how to just make music together. But when I heard him play at the foundation, it was just like, oh wow, like it was like insane. So I'd say that is another thing. Like I'd say Houston's kind of like in the next generation above me. So that was
So the foundation is doing what it's, at least, historically and traditionally, what it's been doing, bringing you guys along. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, we're out there, man. We're making it happen. It was
1 to 5 a.m.
I heard that it got slow during COVID, but it took. I think I started showing up in like September or November of 2020, and I was like, I can't hang with these guys, so I better keep coming until I can. And then it was like,
good for you.
Then I was like, all right, fellas, talking to my friends, I was like, y'all got to be there too. Like, if we're all going to be playing together, we got to be on the same type of timing, and we're not getting it from just playing with each other. We got to learn from these older guys who know how to do this.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Nick, are you guys making a living off of playing, or do you have a side hustle, or what's that look like?
So I kind of have a mixture of playing and teaching. Most of my playing right now is sideman work for like corporate bands. Generally like my own gigs don't really pay too much. And then the other half of my income comes from teaching. I have a private lessons studio, and then I do clinics with high schools in the area.
But you're making a living off the music in one way or the other. It sounds like.
I mean it's not a big living, but it's a living.
Yeah. Josiah.
I'd say last year I was making money through teaching guitar lessons because I knew a little guitar, and then I also just from gigs and stuff. And now since I'm going to KU, I'm primarily just trying to focus on my studies. So just like accepting gigs and just going to school. So
Yeah.
Besides just playing bass, I do a live sound and like studio work with Jalen Ward. He and I have a company together. And so sometimes we'll do, like for Lonnie, if he has special events, we'll run sound for him, or for the JWB, that's Jalen's family's band, who is amazing, by the way. Got to check him out at the Blue Room. Woo! But I get I get to run sound with them. Me and Jalen, we run sound together, and so combined with like playing bass, and I do teaching as well. I do some private lessons. I've kind of scaled that back a little bit, but I want to get back into that starting next year. But besides like teaching and playing, I do sound and we mix, and we do work for KCC as well. We do a little bit of recording for the combos and just being involved with that. But music related activities, ideally.
Well, let me learn a little bit more about each of you. Nick, where are you from originally? Where'd you study music?
So I was born in Bloomington, Indiana, and I moved around a lot as a kid. But I studied music like for the first time seriously at Middle Tennessee State University. It's about 30 minutes south of Nashville, Tennessee, under trumpeter and composer Jamie Simmons.
Was the education worth it?
I mean, I didn't fortunately have to pay anything for it. I was
Oh, that's good.
fortunate enough to receive scholarship and financial aid. To be honest, I don't think it probably wouldn't have been worth it if I had to pay the full cost, but because it was free, it was super worth it. But no, look. Here's what I will say. I think, the best thing that you can get out of school is one, mentorship from an older generation of musicians that has a wealth of knowledge that you don't, and then also your peers.
Right.
Because the other people that you get to spend time there with, those are the people you're receiving information from most of the time. You only get 1 hour a week with your teacher, but you get to play all day with these other people. So I think that was probably the most valuable thing I got from it, And, the only reason I say that it probably wouldn't be worth it is just because college is, like, so expensive. And, like, the amount of money you make as a musician is not a lot. So, and I think a lot of the same stuff, if you have, like, the initiative, you can totally find by just being a freelance musician in the scene, similarly to how I found here. Like, I'm still learning a lot just by being around, But I think for me personally, going to college was the right idea because I knew, like, nothing about this music going in. And it really set me up to be able to do something when I got out.
Did school prepare you for the real world of working as a musician?
Well, I mean, and I can only speak to my experience.
Right.
As far as like the music, yes. Like the music was, very, very thorough. Everything else, not at all.
The business side of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we didn't talk about that like at all at my undergrad.
It's
like
another
there's this
opportunity
whole
for us. I think
there's this
here.
whole idea of
Yeah.
like you get really good and you get gigs, and I don't know. I don't really think that's true.
Yeah. Right.
I think my biggest like educational, like where I went to an institution to learn about like the business of being an artist is I just finished a professional development program, Artist Inc. through the Charlotte Street Foundation. It's open to all ages, and I wholeheartedly believe that every single musician in this town should take that course because you learn so much, and it's all so important, and for some reason it's not taught in music programs.
How do you get gigs in this town?
Well, for me personally, usually it starts with making a list of venues and getting the contact information, sending them an email. Inevitably, there's no response. So I go in person to them and I try to speak
Smart.
to whoever the booking agent is.
Smart.
And sometimes, they reach back out to me, and sometimes they don't. Most of the time they don't. But that's kind of the process. That's what it's been for me, and I'm still in my first year of doing this, like, professionally, so I'm still like workshopping a lot of ideas on how to get better at this.
Yeah, Josiah, let me start. Where are you from originally? Where'd you study music?
I was born in Shawnee Mission, Kansas, and I was for my freshman year of college. I'm still in college, but my freshman year I was at KCKCC under Brett Jackson, and then now I'm currently at KU studying jazz with Matt Otto and Dan Gailey and Eddie. So.
At KU, are you getting any preparation for how to manage your little business in terms of getting out there and making a living at
can you
this?
repeat the question?
At KU, are you getting any education that goes beyond just playing notes? Are you learning about the business side of the music?
Not really, like, at all. I wouldn't say. I mean, last year their way of doing it is more of like, here's a gig for the school, and they kind of have you figure it out, like, say, like, oh, they have your own W-9 and the invoice and all these things, and hire your own group and stuff like that. So, like, they kind of teach you, like, I guess, the art of kind of getting a gig. But, like, from my experience, like, last year, I have a really good friend, Nick Weaver, who's, like, my age, is a trumpet player, killing as well. He, the other Nick, trumpet player. But he when he was a senior in high school, he was emailing venues constantly, and I saw that and I was like, man, I want to play a gig. So I did what Nick said and just emailed as many places as possible. I called a bunch of places, and then they told me, oh, actually email this person, not that. And then it's like, oh, do that. But now I think I have like a couple people that I'm like business owners that know me, and I just kind of reach out.
Nick, was the Charlotte Street program, the class you went to, was it designed for musicians, or was it just for artists in general? And does it need to be more tailored to musicians and jazzers, or not?
No, yeah, so it's for artists of all mediums. It's a group of 20 people every year, and they have programs all around the Midwest. But I don't think it really needs to be tailored towards just musicians. I think any artist, the information I learned was geared towards all artists, because really the thing that they're trying to get you to do is have a very clear vision of who you are now, have a very clear vision of where you want to be and how you're going to get there, and sort of create an identity, figuring out what your values are and how you can align that with your potential audience, or like, grant writing, grantors, things like that.
Jordan, tell us where you're from and, again, where you went to school.
I was born in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm from the Dot, and I went to Kansas City, Kansas Community College. That's right. No
Dot.
Yeah. Oh, hey, if you come to Lonnie's, he'll let you know. He tells everybody I'm from the Dot. It's pretty funny. But I went to Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and I studied under the last 3 years that Jim Mayer taught there. Jim was kind of a non-standard jazz educator. If anyone knows him, he really put an emphasis on the music business aspect of things. He made the music itself really accessible. He taught a lot of, like, for example, my first entire year, because it was during lockdown of COVID, we were outside in a little courtyard in like a U shape, and there's like 5 drummers, and it was weird. But he taught us sugar by rote, just like playing the notes, and we would play it back. And I learned it on bass, and remember, I don't know how to play, so I'm like playing the melody. I'm like, is that what I'm supposed to do? But he took a completely different kind of approach, especially during COVID, because there was nothing going to stop him from having a jazz program going on. And so beyond that, he would have gigs booked for us pretty constantly. where he would just like tell me the contact information and then where to be at what time, and he'd have me book the people, organize the music, be on the microphone, do the entire gig, collect the check, bring it back to him so he can cash it through the school and then pay us. And it was just like, you are going to go learn what this is. And if you have questions, we could call him, I guess. But it was really educational because he just kind of put us in the fire and gave us the tools that we needed in class to learn how to do it. He had a huge emphasis on jam session etiquette, how to run a jam session, how to participate in a jam session, and how to identify when things are like not the best and how to make them better. And he had like a whole like 55-point list of like how to do a jam session. And so you'll notice a lot of the gigs that I do are jam sessions now because of that. And there's so much value in that. But and kind of to the question of how do I get gigs, I mean, as a bass player, that's kind of how you do it. You go meet people who are at sessions trying to find people, and they're like, oh, you can kind of play. Can you please come play this gig tomorrow that I can't find anybody for? And that's a common thing. But Jim had like maybe not as much of an emphasis on like really hard transcriptions, having a particular regimen of things that needed to be done no matter what. He really taught you how to go get a gig and then how to act while you're on stage and how to carry yourself as a musician in a way that's respectable that will get you another gig afterwards. It's not like you're just going up there and letting it all out and being like, all right, I'll see you guys later. You have to talk to the audience. You have to let them meet you where you're at before you can, be on some more ethereal mindset kind of thing. But Jim, he really emphasized the how to be a music entrepreneur. He was really good at that himself. But,
That idea of jazz etiquette, Nick, in Josiah, does that need to be taught, emphasized more to the younger generation? Would that be helpful, or do you sort of know it already?
You mean like jam etiquette or for
how to behave during a gig, all those things that Jordan was just talking about.
Yeah, I would say it's very common nowadays because I feel like people my generation, when we go out to like certain gigs in town, there's just not like people. I feel like people don't make it a show. It's more of like, I'm gonna go here, play my tunes, and then get out of here. Yeah, I mean, there's no sense of how to act on stage. The way to act on stage is to not talk and just play your music and stuff like that. There's not really any focus on showmanship at all. So I would say
help with that too. That's something else this organization.
I would say that in fact, what's being influenced is that. Like, I feel like now, people like our age are just, that's what we do now. There's also not that much like draw, I guess, to like for the artist thing and all that kind of stuff. There's more of a draw of like, okay, what you were taught in school was to play these standards and play this music, and now you're going to go and play it. Don't say anything. Take apart your horn after you're done and leave.
I always think of somebody like Bobby Watson, whose humor is so damn corny, but God, it works. I mean, he's in a gig. He has you laughing between songs all the time, and sometimes I sit back and I think, why am I laughing at that? But just the way he does it, it just sort of gets to me a little bit, But yeah, it's Bobby being Bobby. Yeah, he's so himself. So yeah.
That whole notion of stage department is an age-old thing with jazz. The one advice, counsel I would give to you young players is cling with the mentors, with the elder statesmen, because a lot of that art has slipped aside a little bit with people understanding the importance of audience engagement. Audience engagement is the ticket to sustainability.
To your point, sometimes it's not the best, most talented players who get all the gigs. Right. It's players who know how to connect,
So I remember the great Ray Brown, you probably know the name, Ray Brown, the great bass player, telling me once when I
You better know him, Jordan. Yeah, it's a guy you got to know.
Work with my kids, he said, I used to do these what I call like jazz lunches where, Ray Brown, Jamie Davis, all these guys would come in and we just have lunch and we just talk. And Ray Brown used to say, back in the day, in the 30s, we did a lot of gigs at we did a lot of gigs for big dances. And then in the 40s and 50s, we did concerts on the stage. Well, going back, we did a lot of gigs for dances. A lot of people were there, they were dancing, they were having a great time. Then in the 40s and 50s and 60s, we did a lot of gigs on the stage. And not a lot of people showed up. They weren't dancing. And then in the 70s, 80s, before he passed away, we did a lot of gigs on big festival stages. And maybe sometimes a lot of people would show up, but nobody was dancing. He said, get people dancing. He said, get people enjoying the music, engaging with what you're doing. And it was because the way the artists would interact with their audience gave them a sense of sustainability, because every time you connect with somebody, that's somebody that's going to pick up the phone and call you for a
No, I
gig,
think that's right.
right? So all of that comes into play in terms of how you make your way in terms of identifying your brand, creating your brand, with how you also sell your brand.
I think
Does
it's
that
so
make sense?
important, yeah.
And I think that's, and you've heard, Josiah, you've heard me say this in youth jazz. I mean, this ain't new, right? You've heard me preach this. I know you've heard it too, Jordan, right? So it's so important that we remember the importance of connecting the intergenerational context in the music. It's so very important. And, you know, bless his soul, Roy Haynes, he was a mentor of mine. He was great. I didn't talk to him a ton, but the few times I did, same with Quincy Jones. We had a chance to present him several times, and the kinds of things he would impart to the young people is exactly what we're talking about here. Exactly.
Let me just ask one more, then you guys can ask questions. I just was curious if you guys see yourself here in town 15 years from now. Nick?
Well, to be honest, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in 15 years. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that things are like very uncertain in a lot of ways right now. And I honestly, like, I'm just trying to make it to tomorrow. So, I mean, you know, it would be fun if I was here, but I don't know. There's a lot of life between now and 15 years from now. So
Boy,
we'll
tell
see.
me about it, yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm just thinking about making sure my assignments are ready for next week. I mean, I definitely could see myself still being here. But you know, who knows? Like, I definitely want to go and, you know, release something, and I want to tour, and I want to do all those things. Like, I want to be an artist. So I don't really know where that could take me, but I just know I want to do that. I have that goal in mind.
Jordan?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'd be almost 40 in 15 years, and
God, whoa, man. Whoa.
right. That's that. I would like to emphasize the gravity of that question. So
Yeah,
there's
take a deep breath, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Hey, 15 years is a big gap. My current understanding is that it is an advantage to be based out of Kansas City. Depending on what your goal is. One thing that I'd like to do is travel a lot and get to experience the music that exists like nationally and also internationally. I think that cost of living and a whole bunch of other factors play a massive role into whether or not I'm going to literally relocate where I'm based out of. But my current understanding is that being here in KC is an advantage in a lot of ways. So
Because of the reputation of the town, you mean?
Well, I mean, all kinds of things. The reputation of the town, but also, like, it's a little cheaper to live here, literally. And, like, I'm from the Dot, and, you know, it's a little bit of a, like, lower income part of the neighborhood, but it's a safe neighborhood, and, you know, we're all kind of struggling together. You know, it's not like there's a lot of, it's not that dangerous, especially, like, in the part of town that I'm in, and so there's lots of great areas in the overall metro area, not only the Kansas side, but on the Missouri side as well. And being here is an advantage in a lot of ways, but I also will not be limiting myself to the Midwest. But 15 years is crazy. Crazy. Crazy.
Well, how about a preliminary round of applause for our panelists who've been so great? I really appreciate great answers here. 816-235-2888 is the phone number here. Who do you want to? Who's got a question for our panel? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah.
You did a program worthwhile to do again at a different time of day, because I think that was a luncheon.
Yes.
And people, everybody can't come to that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent point. Yeah.
That was a really, Bobby Watson was learning stuff at that
Yeah, exactly.
program. He was like, he didn't know some of that stuff. Yeah.
I have a question. First of all, congratulations to all of you for your candor.
Yeah.
And your maturity level and your foresight of where you want to be and being a musician. I want to know where your gigs are.
Yes.
Because it's hard to find a list of gigs in this town. The obvious ones we all know. You can pull it up on, on sites. But where do you guys go to?
Great question. I was going to ask that. Yeah. Nick?
Well, so right now my next gig is with the Tim Brewer Big Band at the Westport Coffee House Theater, which is probably the venue I've played at the most in town. But I also play at Corvino occasionally, so if you want to hear me play, check those places out.
I played at the Shop Cigar Lounge and occasionally at Vine Street Brewery, and Westport Coffee House is a really big one as well. And then another one is Pathlight Brewing as well. That was a good one. And then I occasionally, well, my second time, I'll be playing at Corvino is later this month, I think November 28th, with my group YBC, it's with Jalen Ward and Isaiah Petrie. And it's going to be really cool. It's a lot of, we do a lot of, it's improvisational, and it draws from that, but it's more of composing on the spot. So kind of creating a groove, like with a bass line, drums, loop it, and just go. And that, again, Eddie Moore, big inspiration for that. I'll be playing with like saxophone pedals and different sounds and stuff. It's really cool. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I play with Lonnie on Fridays and Saturdays at the Ambassador. If you haven't seen that, you should. He's amazing, and he's got an excellent story, and boy, can he dance. Oh, man. It's amazing how he does it. It's crazy. I play at the Uptown Lounge on Tuesdays with currently Parker Woolworth and Julian Goff. We do a jam session 8 to midnight, and that's a fun one. We get going out there. I'm at the Mutual Musicians Foundation very regularly. I love it there. It's the best. I do Corvino occasionally. I play the Majestic occasionally with Eddie Moore.
You guys haven't mentioned two of the big mainstays, Green Dolphin and Blue Room. How tough is it to get? Why haven't you mentioned those places?
I think it's impossible for me to get in. I don't know.
Well, tell me about that.
I'd say like age group is like me. I'm also just under. I'm not 21 yet. I'll be turning 20 later in like a week actually, which is cool. But what's another thing about that though is like I've just never seen the vibe there. Never been able to listen to any of that music. And so I don't really know. And also I'm very unfamiliar,
Yeah, I mean, also the Green Lady doesn't have horn players.
Oh yeah.
Like the Green Lady is rhythm section only, and yeah, there's just a lot of strange things about the Green Lady.
Yeah, I would say that because it's organ trio, it's kind of difficult as a bass player. I know they have bass players in there sometimes, but with both of those places, there's generally a circuit of cats who are always in there, and it's hard to break into it. The guys who do it have been doing it for a very long time, right. and they're good at what they do for sure. The Blue Room, it feels like the only way you can get in is if you host a Monday night jam session, and it's still hard to do that. But the acts at the Blue Room are so cool. Like seeing the James Ward Band at the Blue Room, it's truly a transformative experience. They get it on out there. But, those places are hard to get into. I feel like especially because, the medium is selling alcohol. And so it's hard to get the youth involved in places that are like bar exclusive with no food. But there is kind of a trade-off there because of the listening room aspect. But yeah, you'll see me at the Blue Room. I think I'm playing with Ariana Namadi later on in December on a Monday night jam session. And then we occasionally do other Monday night things, but I mean, Monday night is really the only time I would get the opportunity to play there, I would say. And Green Lady, it's really hard to get in there, especially because I play with Lonnie, but also it's organ trio. So my buddy Drew, he plays there with Matt Hopper and our friend Andrew Ray, who are all straight killers on their instruments, and they get it on out there too. So it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. It's challenging.
Yeah, please, Josiah.
I would say like a lot of venues tend to also, like when Jordan was saying, they keep all the same people every week, and there's just a lot of artists, young, old, whatever, like that want to share their music, but there's not enough they're not circulating people through that. So it's like there's a lot of set things, and which is good, and like the people who have those positions are great musicians, but I just think there are a lot of musicians that don't get like a place to have a say, and play. So.
You would welcome the opportunity, it sounds like, all three of you. Yeah.
I have a question, Steve.
Yeah, Daryl.
Guys, when I contacted you asking you to be on this panel, I requested that you promote this on your social medias. Did any of you do that?
Yeah, I made a collaborative post, and I collaborated all three of them. I noticed that when I first started advertising just for my stuff, just for like trying to bring out an audience, I've learned that giving like a crazy like 1 month notice beforehand is like good and people know about it, but most people don't really like a lot of people are very spontaneous at nighttime, especially. So it's like I'd say about within a week or two out to promote. So I think I reposted some stuff, and then I made a collaborative post like a week before.
Follow up on my question on that is, I mean, if you notice, very few of us, most of us all here are well over the 40 age. 15
I'm 39.
So I'm not seeing your generation in our events, and I'm wanting to know how I can promote to get your generation to start coming to Kansas City Jazz Alive events.
Yeah, well, one thing I will say is I think tonight specifically, there's not a lot of people here of our age demographic because they already know what our opinions are on everything.
Yeah, and they live it too.
Like, we have these conversations on our own, But no, I mean, I think just having a bigger social media presence, like just having, because right now, like if you look at where you can find a list of all events, like jazz related events in Kansas City, it's like the KKFI Jazz Calendar, which is great. I check it a lot. That's like that's my source of like information for knowing how things are going. But I think just like generally getting on social media more and promoting things like incessantly is the way to do it. Because
I have something to say. Lauren Broadus is a French horn player from UMKC. He has a show tonight, and he like booked 2 different bands for both sets. So
At Westport Coffee House.
yeah, and a lot of people I think who are going to come here are either on the show or they're going
I
there.
kind of wondered about that as well. And for those of you that don't know about Westport Coffee House, the theater underneath the coffee house is becoming one of Kansas City's premier places to go to listen to jazz.
Yeah.
Tom Podesic is doing a
Tom.
wonderful job.
Yeah.
Tom.
But to find out about what's going on at that, you have to friend him on Facebook, friend their page on Facebook, and that's how you'll find out about the things that are happening there.
I want to say one thing. Shout out Herschel McWilliams. He has a website called livejazzkc.com, and
It's incomplete as well.
it is incomplete, but it's another place to go.
He still has Ebony Fondren on Tuesday nights at the Uptown Lounge.
So part of the issue with calendars is, so you have the Visit KC website that has a calendar. To some extent, Jazz Alive, depending on how you guys go or we go with that. You have Herschel's project, you have, used to have the project, John Scott over at Green Lady.
Right. That Bill Brownlee put together. Yeah.
You have to dedicate resources to keep those calendars updated. And so if an artist is scheduled to play, say, next Tuesday, and they get a call for another gig somewhere else that pays a little more on Tuesday, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go to that gig. But do they communicate it with the person putting the schedule on? So you may go to that site, and that person's not there, so you're pissed because why did they have it? So part of the issue, the challenge is the resources that it takes to manage and upkeep calendars is really, excuse my French, a bitch. It really is. So that means that for us as audience members, we have to, and there's also Jazz Near You, the great work that, what's his name? Michael Rizzi does out in Philadelphia. He has this great project that does Jazz Near You in every city. And he's even in Europe as well. But even that has quirks. Because some of if the venues don't update their calendar and the artists don't update it with the venues, then that is just what it is. But nonetheless, I think the big thing is, and I'm sorry, Daryl, I'll stop here.
That's all right.
The big thing is the importance of, so if you want to go see Joe Moderatz, who's your favorite artist, call Joe Moderatz and find out what Joe's schedule is, and go support Joe. And if you want to go hear Jason or Jared, go call Jared and go to his gigs, because I think that's very important. Sometimes we rely on these things and we get mad if the social media is not perfectly correct. But it's such a moving part. It was always a difficult thing for us, even at the American Jazz Museum, although I think Chris Burnett did a hell of a job of keeping all of that stuff as up to date as we could while we were working there together. But even then, Chris will tell you that things change. So I would say, let's communicate with the artists. I don't know any artist in Kansas City that don't want people to call them and ask them about their gigs. Do you guys? I would love it if people called you guys more and said, hey, when are you gigging more? I think you would like that. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it seems to me that would be a good way to connect and build an audience. So I'll stop there.
All right, thanks, Greg. We got one more.
We'll do one more question from Bill. Yeah.
This is more of a recommendation. From a standpoint of promotion and hustle, you've got 20-some people in this room, and you should be curating your email list.
Yes.
And every one of these people, their email should be on your list.
Yeah, I agree. Great point.
Don't miss a heartbeat of an opportunity to build networking.
Yep.
It's the key. You think, it's just a small group. It has a compounding effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that. Stan Kessler has a plain vanilla, old-school email list where it's text.
Yeah.
It tells us where he is,
Mm-hmm.
and we can put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, the Music House.
Very good.
Are you going to be there, Nick?
I don't
Did you know
know.
about it?
I didn't.
Well, thank you all so much. Out of respect for the Folly Theater and their staff,
Yeah.
I'm having to shut this down so that we can clean up and get out of here.
Nick, Jordan, Josiah, give them a round of applause again, guys. It was just great. Nice job, guys. Really appreciate it.
Steve Kraske.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful every time we have one of these sessions.
Thanks for your help, Daryl. Thank you.
And Jazz Alive, guys, give it up for Jazz Alive.
And I want to end with one last statement. Yes, these guys are the future of Kansas City jazz, but I want to challenge you and say you are also the future of Kansas City jazz. Get out, go to the clubs, support the venue owners that are putting jazz in their venues, at their restaurants, at their clubs. Pay the cover charges, because that's how these guys are making money. Drop some money in their jars at the front, because that's how we keep this thing alive. They've also are doing Venmo and other type of things. I'm sure they wouldn't mind you dropping them a Bitcoin or two.
Not big.
So let's keep the music alive. Thank you all.